Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Barrie Robinson, National Operations Director at Parkdean Resorts. Coming up on today's show, Barrie is a bit harsh on Phil.
Well, don't do that. It's a stupid thing to do. I don't expect anything less than you.
Phil shows his age. And I'll say, well, I'm on duty, I'll take £1, because that's how much a half was back then. And Barrie demonstrates that not all careers have an easy route to the top.
Not only did I have to tell you 6 weeks ago that I told my boss to F off, I've now been to tick over my new one.
All that and so much more as we chat through Barrie's epic story so far. From glass collector to National Operations Director via imposter syndrome, leadership lessons and one unforgettable phone contact. So please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share wherever you can. Enjoy! And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Barrie Robinson.
Good morning, Phil. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Looking forward to our chat, actually. It's something I've been looking forward to for a while, so it's great to be on your platform, and I'm very proud to be here.
Bless you, yes. And actually, you know, you fall within a realm of the industry that we've not really done a lot in, to be honest. So, and equally, we've got many things to discuss today.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to what you do for a day job, there are other things that we'll cover as well, of course. But yeah, maybe just tell the world what it is that you actually do.
So my day job, I am the National Operations Director for a company called Parkdean Resorts. Parkdean Resorts is the biggest operator of holiday parks across the UK. So we have 67 locations in England, Scotland, Wales, the Isle of Wight. And I'm a massive advocate and very proud and passionate to work in the hospitality sector. I think the hospitality sector is one of the UK's best kept employment secrets, but I also think working in holiday parks is a really secret element of hospitality as well, because on a holiday park you get to expose yourself to the good and the great of hospitality. There's a sales element from holiday home sales perspective. There's the holiday element of a number of people taking our rental opportunities. We probably rent out about 400,000 holidays a year. We've got about 20,000 owners in our business, and on every single park we've got pubs, bars and restaurants adding to that experience as well. So my day job is a little bit of a detached view from where I started. I went to university for all of 6 weeks. I studied media studies and theatre studies, and realised after 6 weeks that reading a newspaper and pretending to be a tree was too hard for me. So I very quickly, much to my parents' disappointment, very quickly dropped out of university. And
I mean, when you put it like that, why was that to their disappointment? You know,
I think because I was their very first child to go to university, did a course that probably didn't count, and as I say, lasted 6 weeks, and ended up as a glass collector in my local M&B pub, which for me was the best thing I could possibly have done, because I surrounded myself with like-minded people, as opposed to these academic, even on a media studies and theatre studies course. Academia clearly wasn't for me, but hospitality was. And I've never, ever regretted, much to the damage and disappointment I caused my parents, I've never, ever regretted that association and exposure to hospitality, where I've been, as I say, pubs, bars and restaurants right the way through until about 12 years ago, when I joined Parkdean Resorts and moved into the world of caravans.
Yeah, the world of caravans, yes. There's a bit more to it than that, I think. But and also, you know, you've reminded me, and I don't know why you've reminded me. It's pretty prevalent to a part of my life. This is actually how I got my start in the industry. I started at Haggerston Castle Holiday Park in the northeast, yes, as a bartender, and I only did it for it's probably about 4 months. But that was only because I was trying to get work on cruise ships at the time. So it was what I'd classify as a filler job. But in actual fact, it was just brilliant. and taught me so much around volume driven kind of wet sales, as it
Mhm.
were. And but also, I got promoted in that time to supervisor, you
Yeah.
know, which is, I look back on that now and think, I mean, I went in there with 0 bar experience. It was literally one of those things whereby, you display attitude and things happen.
But yeah, and isn't that the brilliance of our industry in that you can go into a job, you can be in there with zero experience, you can perform to the best of your abilities, you can make a difference every single day in every single interaction that you have, and over a very short period of time, you can start to progress your career. And I think Haggerston Castle, a haven site, so a great opportunity for me to balance out there and mention one of Parkdean Resorts' competitors. But I think that's really interesting and highlights the fact and the reason that I think this is hospitality is one of the UK's best kept career secrets, because lots of people enter into hospitality in between jobs or as a summer job or in between courses, educational courses, and think that that's all there is to it. And of course, as you've articulated there, very quickly you can progress, you can advance your career, and you can have a fantastically rewarding career, not just from a financial perspective, from a personal perspective, from a development perspective, from an influence perspective, in a career that people sometimes just see as, I'm just doing a bartendering job or a glass collecting job or pot washing. That's where I started, as a glass collector, who got extremely lucky. But I got lucky because I was in an industry that if you worked hard and committed to it, then your opportunities would open very quickly. And there aren't many industries that afford people those chances.
100%. Yeah, and the thing that I always remember about that time as well is that, I mean, really, that was my first real job in inverted commas. I worked at Blockbuster Video. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
As just a general retail assistant. But I just remember being made to feel incredibly welcome. I also remember, this is kind of a really interesting point actually. Now that I think about this, is that I'd graduated from uni with a degree in leisure and recreation management, and didn't know what to do with it. Basically, was the long and the short of it. But and I remember my mum and dad had just moved us to the northeast, local to where Haggerston Castle is, and I joined the local football team like on day one, just to go and try and meet some people, and went to the pub after. And the guys were so depressed around the area. They were like, "You won't. I don't know why you moved here. You won't find a job." Sort of thing. And literally the next day, I started work as a bartender in Haggerston Castle. And so there's a couple of things in play here. One on that side of the fence, whereby there's this probably perception. Well, I'd rather do no job than do that job, kind of thing, which is horrific. But
Mm.
two, I was made to feel very welcome by the guys there. But also there was this stigma around me having a university degree, saying, "Why are you here being a bartender?" from a lot of the other bartenders. And I was like, "Well, experience. I might have a degree, but I don't have any experience. And actually, experience is where you win."
Well, absolutely. And I think it's interesting, isn't it, that you meet those people in the bar that are depressed around the local area that they're in, the opportunities that they're in. They question why you come, and you end up in a job that shapes your future career hugely. And I think it's hospitality provides something unique that I don't think really is easy to achieve, or easy to find in many other sectors, and that's the opportunity to generate an experience. And I think it's very easy. You go into a chemist or a shop or whatever, and it's quite a cold interaction. And yes, you functionally get through what you need to do, but working in hospitality, in pubs, in bars, in restaurants, you are generating experience that people will take away and remember. And I think I always think you go into my local now, and I could order a pint of Guinness, pay £5, whatever, get the pint of Guinness and walk away. And yes, I've had that interaction and that exchange, but there's no experience. Where if you are the right person and you are willing to do that and wanting to do that, you can create an experience by, as you get to the bar, speaking about the customer's name, having that pint ready for them, asking what they've done that day, paying the £5.70 for the pint, and that individual walks away. But you've generated an experience there that
Mm.
might be the only experience of that individual. Some of those chaps that you're talking about in Haggerston Castle when you first started that are depressed and don't have much going on. This is an opportunity. Hospitality provides an opportunity to influence, to build relationships, and to generate experience. And I think being an experience generator and viewing it in that lens rather than being a glass collector or a bar person is quite empowering, I think. And there's lots of, I don't think we celebrate, I don't think we highlight it enough, the talent that we've got and the broad church of that talent, the brevity of talent that you find in hospitality is huge. And certainly when you commit to a career in hospitality, the breadth of that church, the brevity of what you can do really surprises you and opens a lot of opportunities.
No doubt, no doubt. And also I can still, just staying on me for a minute. Um, I can still remember, to like, just to completely bust the myth around this industry being a low paid industry. Is that I, as part of that short tenure there, it also coincided with New Year's Eve celebrations. Triple time on the bar that night as a bar supervisor. I was also put into the owner's bar, which was full of the regulars that you kind of just build relationships with. And every single round of drinks was, get yourself a half.
Yeah,
And I'll say, well, I'm on duty. I'll take a pound because that's how much a half was back then. Um, and I'll have one after work. But thank you very much. And stick a pound in a pot. And at the end of the night, I had 320 quid in
yeah,
in the pot, plus
yeah,
triple time. You know,
yeah.
I would have put myself down for every single New Year's Eve shift till the end of time.
You
Not
should be
just
doing them
because,
now, Bill.
yeah, indeed. Not just because of the monetary element, but actually the camaraderie, the celebratory feel of it. And again, this is a narrative that we could probably all tell ourselves in our head. You can go one of two ways. You can say, "Oh God, I've got to go and work the New Year's Eve shift," or you can say, "Yay, I'm going to go and work the New Year's Eve shift. I'm going to get paid well, and I'm going to have a lot of banter while I'm there, and it's just going to be an awful lot of fun." And yeah, just I don't know if you're picking this up, but it was actually a really glorious part of my life.
It is, and I think that's people. I think this a lot now. Actually, working on holiday parks, people go on holiday to have good fun. You want to have a great experience when you're on holiday. You're going on holiday in more often cases than not, I'm sure, with people that you want to spend time with. So I go onto holiday parks now, and it's brilliant to be with people that are looking to have a great time, and therefore then you have great times in being able to create that opportunity for them to have an amazing memory and to have an amazing holiday. It's exactly the same in the pub, isn't it? Invariably, and in the main, people go into the pub to have a couple of pints, a bit of banter, and enjoy the people that they are around, the staff, the colleagues, the team that they're with, and their friends that they've gone into the pub with. And that environment leads to an enjoyable, edifying experience and place to work. And so it's no wonder that we're drawn to actually wanting to get up, get out, and go to work. And there are some careers, I'm sure, some industries where that perhaps isn't always the case. But in hospitality, I think, because it comes back to that experience generating point again, I think people are willing to have a good time and a good experience. And we are right at the heart of that in being able to offer hospitality as we can. And I think we talk a lot about my day job is there, but the second string to the bow, I guess, in the North Star competitive career accelerator, that's the flip side of that, is starting to look at the talent that is within our business, shining a light on some of those unseen and underappreciated, undervalued areas, and just celebrating that, promoting that, and providing an opportunity to be even better at that moving forward, which again, I think I'm very passionate about as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're going to get into that for sure.
Mm.
I am eminently conscious that I've completely hijacked the conversation so far. So I want to turn this back onto your journey, and we kind of haven't really gone anywhere other than you started out life as a glass collector, and yeah, take us through your journey really in terms of how it progressed.
Yeah, so I started as a glass collector. I was 18 at the time, which was quite funny because even to my parents' disappointment, I couldn't even get a bartender's job at 18 because having dropped out of university, the only job available was that glass collecting job. So I did that. I really enjoyed that. I worked then through the Mitchells. It was the Black Bull in Yarm, which then was the fourth busiest Mitchells and Butlers pub outside of London. There were a couple of other big pubs, but that was the fourth best performing pub outside of London. And I did every single job there that I could do other than licensed house manager. So from glass collector right the way through to assistant manager. And I moaned at the end of that to my mum and dad that I was doing lots and lots of hours. And my licensed house manager, who taught me a lot, and because he developed me as well as he had, was now afforded to be able to go and play golf a lot. And my dad said to me, right, well, put your money where your mouth is, go and do it yourself. And I did. And my then girlfriend at the time and I took on our first tenancy with Enterprise Inns. I was 23, Wendy was 21. We were the youngest Enterprise Inns tenants then in 2003-4. And we took over a pub in a tiny little North Yorkshire village that had been closed for a period of time or intermittently opening. It was doing about 500 quid a week, so nothing. And over a period of time, about 8 months, we took that business from 500 quid a week to about £6,000 a week.
Wow.
And it was entirely by being placing ourselves right at the heart of the community. I was front of house, Wendy was in the kitchen. We had a really small menu, but we promised ourselves that although it was a small menu, that would afford us the opportunity to do a few things really well, rather than trying to do a lot of things not very well.
Yep.
And we'd taken the 3-year tenancy, big risk, on relatively low rent, because obviously this pub hadn't performed. And Enterprise Inns came around and tried pretty hard to get us to take a lease, which I suspect in time would have allowed them to charge a bit more rent. We resisted that and didn't do that. And then about 9 months into that, Enterprise Inns came along and said, you won't take a lease here, but we want to offer you another lease and another pub. And I got very excited about it, very played to my ego. Wendy was much more reticent and said, no, we shouldn't do that. It's going really well in this one pub. Don't do it. I didn't listen to her. We ended up taking that second site, massive investment, 500 grand's worth of investment. The rent had gone from 15 grand to 52 grand in one step.
Jeez, right.
But I had believed the smoke that had been blown towards me and thought, yeah, we're going to be fantastic. We can do it. It'll be brilliant. And we took on 2 sites, and that was the worst decision I could ever have made. It damaged the first site. Wendy and I couldn't stretch ourselves or spread ourselves thinly enough to be able to make both sites work. It damaged our relationship, which subsequently failed. But out of it, I was alerted to Enterprise Inn's Associate Regional Manager Programme, which was the very first inaugural programme that they'd done. It would be a bit like a graduate management scheme, although obviously at that point, as you now know, I didn't have a degree or anything. And I went onto that scheme with Enterprise Inns, and it was brilliant. It was a 6-month scheme. They spent 6 areas of the business, so credit control, marketing, legal, sales, development, and you spent a week in their head office and then a week out in the field. And what was brilliant there was you were able to see the decisions that were made in head office, how that impacted a leaseholder or a tenancy holder. You would then spend a week in the field looking at that impact, and then you would go back on the final week of the month and feed back the impact. It gave you a really rounded exposure to regional management and the impact that it had as a lessee or a tenant. At the end of that programme, I was very fortunate to graduate to a regional management programme. Worked for Enterprise Inns, a couple of interesting stories that I could divulge perhaps within a couple of minutes. Did that for 3 years. Then I went to Green King for 5 years as area manager, and then did their disposal arm for about 18 months, and then joined Parkdean Resorts as a regional director first, and then national ops director. But I guess my Enterprise Inns, the Enterprise Inns job coincided with 2007-8 recession.
Right.
And I was fortunate to be given the Lake District role, or the Lake District region. The Lake District region benefited from the staycation boom, a bit similar to what we've seen, I suppose, through COVID, where you couldn't travel abroad, and what you will also see in other recessions where people obviously holiday in the UK. The Lake District was hugely successful and a beneficiary of that. But I was part of the Yorkshire and Cumbria region, and the Yorkshire and Cumbria region really found it difficult to perform. So I was in a scenario where my region was performing, but the division that I was in was underperforming. And that put a pretty big stress and fracture on, or pressure on, my divisional director's relationship with me, because I was relatively new. I had a region that was performing, but a division that wasn't. And it stress tested that relationship. I worked for somebody who, because of that pressure, fundamentally flawed that relationship. And the way that I was led during that period of time had a massive impact on my self-confidence, and my imposter syndrome went through the roof, to the point where I didn't have confidence or courage to make a decision that I fundamentally knew was right, because I'd been a lessee and a tenant. I understood the impact, but I didn't have the confidence to, or the courage of my own conviction. And I got into a really dark place, actually. My boss used to ring me and I would have to let it go to answer phone to do two things. One was to judge the tonality of the question that I was being asked. And secondly was to try and find the answer before I was able to go back and give it. I just didn't, I couldn't answer
Gosh.
the phone. It was a horrible
Yeah.
scenario.
It's almost
So I
like
got
they're
into a position.
paralyzed by fear,
Yeah, I
almost.
was. Yeah, and it was. And it was, I think there was a suspicion, there was a nervousness, there was an uneasiness about it. And rather than embracing it and looking why the region was working, I was second guessed or second questioned on every single thing I did. And paralysis by fear was exactly right. I overcame this though, Phil, by when my phone used to ring, I used to think, oh, fuck off, I'm not answering it. And I would let it go to answer phone. And then I thought, I changed the name of my boss in my phone to fuck off, don't answer, which made me laugh, because every time my phone would ring, on my screen it would say fuck off, don't answer, which was fine, and I would have a little laugh. I'd listen to the voicemail and then go back to my boss. This was brilliant for about 6 months, and we were in a pub in Burnley in a day in trade. We'd got to the end of the day in trade. I hated these days in trade, the pressure that I used to put myself under, the stress that I would have. I ended up only ever probably going to 3 pubs in each of these days in trade because I was so nervous about what would happen. Anyway, we went to this pub in Burnley. We finished it. I was driving back to Leeds, and I got about 30 minutes away from dropping my boss off in Leeds and realised that I'd left my bag in the pub in Burnley. So I said to my boss, I'm really sorry, I've made a stupid mistake. I've left my bag at the pub. And I said, I can either carry on and take you home, or I can go back, get it and drop you back. And my boss said, well, don't do that. It's a stupid thing to do. I don't expect anything less than you, but let's go and back to the pub in Burnley and get it. So drove back. We were about 5 minutes from the pub, and my boss said, I'm just going to ring to make sure you haven't left your phone in the car or it's in the back. And I had an Audi A6 at the time, which I thought was brilliant, had all the bells and whistles that you would want. But one of the things it did brilliantly was to announce the person that was ringing. My boss rang. And as the last digit on their phone was pressed, I realised that I hadn't left my bag or phone in the pub. I had, in fact, put it in the boot. And in my Audi A6, in a very German tone, the radio announced that fuck off, don't answer was calling. And of course, for a moment, my boss sat there and looked and thought, what the fuck is happening? As my phone kept saying, fuck off, don't answer calling, fuck off, don't answer calling. And
Oh my God.
of course, we realised pretty quickly that my boss wasn't, in fact, in there as their name, but they were in there as fuck off, don't answer. And interestingly, I left for Green King about 3 weeks later.
Really?
But I left with a lesson. And it's a really important lesson, and a lesson that I've tried to take forward. No matter how hard things get, no matter how difficult or bleak it becomes, I never, ever want anybody that works with me to have been led by me in a way in which they resort to taking my name out of their phone book and putting in a name such as fuck off, don't answer.
Yeah.
And it's a funny story. It's a painful story, and one that took me a long time to overcome. But I think I never ever want to be thought of I never want anybody who works with me. People don't ever work for me, they work with me. But I don't want anybody who has worked with me ever to have put my name in their phone as fuck off, don't answer.
Yeah.
Because it's not
I mean,
great.
you've set the new bar on aspirations here, haven't you? Really, I mean, it's
I followed that up by a brilliant guy, probably my industry hero, a chap called Chris Wellham, who certainly if you're a pub bar or restaurateur, you will know Chris extremely well. Lots of big roles. Chris was the guy that I went to work with at Green King from Enterprise Inns, having inadvertently told my previous boss to fuck off without realising. And I spent 4 weeks. I joined mid-November, and the first day that I had out with Chris was at a meeting in Green King, a brilliant brewery meeting. I think these things don't happen as much now. We had a 2 hour meeting, and then we went for 4 hours worth of pints before we got the train back from London, in a Green King pub.
Standard.
I made the fatal error of not having eaten anything at all, going away on my very first brewery jolly, downing a few pints, coming out at 10 to 7 to get the taxi back to King's Cross. And the cold reality of December air hitting me, having been in a really hot pub, having downed a few pints, had nothing to eat, and was promptly sick all over Chris Wellham from head to toe.
God.
So in the space of about 6 weeks, I told my previous boss to fuck off, and I covered my new boss completely in sick. So I don't know really how I managed to survive those experiences. I hasten to say that I have a brilliant relationship with Chris Wellham since, and he was integral in my not only in keeping me in employment at Green King, but also giving me the opportunity and the space in which to grow as an operator and as a leader. And that's where I won the. I haven't said this, but I won in 2013 the ALMR UKH Ops Manager of the Year award, which was ridiculous. I should never have won that. Being a glass collector that got extremely lucky, but I managed to do that, and that changed and unlocked something in my brain and in my head that allowed me to wind down my imposter syndrome, shut it up for the first time ever, and started to be able to believe that I could do the job, I could make a difference, and I might be able to progress my career in an industry that I loved, but in a manner in which I had never, ever thought I'd be able to do so before, which is why I think bringing back those awards are really important.
Yeah, my God, and congratulations, by the way. You are maybe the first person that has actually made me cry with laughing live on the show. I had tears coming out my the outsides of my eyes
Well,
at that.
I think that's a good thing. I hope it's a good thing.
It's a good thing for sure, for sure. But I mean, God, so much to unpack there. One, let's just focus on the negative boss for a second. Like, I mean, we've all probably worked for people like that. That's the thing. I've certainly got stories of working for people like that where I look back on them now, and much like your reflection, you can look at these things and go, well, in actual fact, not in the moment, but I'm really kind of glad that I went through it, because it has highlighted to me a method of leadership slash management that I just have zero time for. You know, things are tough enough with in terms of trying to make a business work, especially in the climate in which we find ourselves. So you might as well try and remove as much resistance as possible rather than putting up more resistance. And I've just never really understood that kind of ruling by fear mentality. Yes, you can get people to respond to it, but you won't get people to stay with you for a great deal of time if that's your ethos.
Yeah, I think you're right. We all will have seen these things and will have worked for people like that. And I think what you have to do is to take something from everybody that you encounter. And what I've tried to do, Chris Wellham's a prime example, and lots of other people as well. Steve Richards now, who's my CEO at Parkdean, big guy in the industry as well. You take from those people the great things and the things that you want to try and, in your own authentic and with integrity way, build into your own leadership shadow. But I also think it's important, even in the hardest of times, to be able, and the toughest of times, to be able to take elements of leadership that you don't want to replicate and you don't want to take forward. And I think people fundamentally don't come to work to do a bad job I don't think that's the case in many, many instances. What we have to do is to provide the opportunity for that person to be able to execute their role to the best of their abilities. And we do that, I firmly believe, by making sure that you love the people that you've got. I talk a lot about work in asking people whether they can you be better than me? And in that, I mean, that's not about me being an ego, but if I look at a general manager, that general manager became a general manager because they were probably the best person working in that business at an assistant manager level. They got to assistant manager because they were the best bartender, whatever, as we move forward. Our job and our role is to make sure that we're asking our teams whether they can be better than I am at that job. And if they are, and they can be better than I am now, then we need to wrap our arms around them and make sure they feel super valued, super trusted and they know the importance of the role that they're playing in that team. If they're not, but they could be, then it's really important that we provide the training, the mentorship, the stretch, the opportunity for them to get to the stage where they can be better than me in that role. And also sometimes, if they're never going to do that, they're just in the wrong position, they're in the wrong role, the wrong hole, whatever, then it's really important that we have that conversation with them as quickly as possible, because often they want that conversation because they already know that they're struggling a bit. I often think about if you have a squirrel and put that squirrel in the sea and say to the squirrel, go and get a nut in the sea, and you get a fish out of the sea and say, go and climb that tree and get a nut, then the fish will come to work all day long, but have no chance of getting the nut. The squirrel will go into the pond every single day and have no chance of getting that. If you address that and then say, actually, I'm going to get a squirrel climbing the tree and a fish swimming in the pond, then the pair of them will do that brilliantly. And that's what I think a leader should do. What you should never do, because you can't address the deficiencies or the issues that those individuals have got, or the pressure that you are under as a leader because you're not executing your responsibilities correctly, then you should never lead by fear or make people feel worse than they are. And I think some people do that, and it's a real shame. But those three core principles: can you be better than me? Empowering and engaging with devolving responsibility and accountability to individuals who then have the freedom within a framework to execute their role, and then having VIP standards. And VIP standards isn't very important person standards, but I believe that's adding value, having an impact, and being proud of what you have done as a leader. If you nail those three things, I think you will be in a really strong position to bring people with you, and to your point, retain those people over a period of time.
Yeah, totally. So many. I mean, even if I think back to my own career, and I've definitely been guilty of not looking at things in the right way at a certain point of time for whatever reason, lack of maturity or whatever. But being promoted quickly is one thing because you're good at what you did before. But when you step into a new role, you've got no experience of that role, right? So a lot of people will step into that and immediately be out of their depth. And so as a business, if you are giving somebody the opportunity to do that, the least you can do is ensure that one, they want to be there in the first place. They haven't just said yes because it sounds like a great idea, but two, that if they do want to be there and they are going to be in a moment that they find themselves where they don't have the skill to excel in it, which is pretty rare when you make any kind of step up immediately on day one, that they've got a support function around them that really holds their hand and really catches them and allows them to make inevitable errors and all of that, but doesn't then critically just pull them back down to earth, the minute that something goes a little bit wrong.
That's the leader's responsibility as well, isn't it? And I think when you go through an interview and interviewing is difficult, isn't it? But when you go through an interview process and you appoint somebody, you will appoint that person because of how they've come across on interview, because of the experience that they've got before. But you'll also probably, and the hospitality sector does this so often because there's such a great, rich stream of opportunity. We will employ people, promote people that we are aware of the fact that they've got a couple of gaps. And for a leader then to appoint somebody, knowing that they've got a couple of development areas where we need to work with them, but not then work with them and hold that against them in 6 or 8 weeks' time or 6 months' time or 12 months' time, that's the leader's responsibility, not the individual's, because we failed that individual.
Yeah.
And there are lots and lots of brilliant courses, brilliant opportunities in our sector as well, where you can backfill those developmental needs, those opportunities, those areas for talent as well. And I think, again, that adds and drives retention as well.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotocloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
But it's such a valid point, and I think, as you quite rightly say, that this is an industry that is just ripe with opportunity, right? As we spoke about all the way back at the beginning, you could literally turn up to work with a good attitude, and give it 2 years, and you're probably going to be a couple of steps up the ladder before you even think about it. But the second point around that is that that's great, and the last thing we want to do as an industry is to alienate people who have got great attitudes, who are meant for this industry, because they just haven't had the right kind of support when they have been asked to step up, which is an inevitable part of the industry as well. You are going, if you are good, you are going to be asked to step up at some point.
Yeah, so I think our hospitality industry, and this is why it's one of the UK's best kept employment secrets, the rate at which you can progress in here and in this industry and sector is second to none. There isn't that opportunity. And what we've got, because we've got such fluidity in the employment structure, it generates opportunity and chances and the ability for you to diversify where you are regularly. And I don't think there's another sector really that has that rate of career progression and that opportunity as rich and as abundant as hospitality is. And it's yet again another serious plank as to why people should work and should take it seriously and consider that as a definite opportunity to progress individually.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know that you're destined to have a strong relationship with somebody when you've been sick over them and they still want to play a part in your career.
Yeah, I mean that I remember coming back home, telling my wife, and we just had our eldest daughter. She was about 6 months old, and I remember saying to her, "Yeah, not only did I have to tell you 6 weeks ago that I'd told my boss to F off, I've now been sick over my new one." And Chris did something brilliantly. How he reacted to that. We got back on the train. They went first class. I went in the bike shed, I think, back from Darlington. And we got off the train, and he said to me, "Right, you'll speak to me in the morning." And I didn't sleep. I woke up at about 4:30 in the morning. I went into my office and I stressed about what to say to Chris. I didn't know what to say other than, "Crikey, I'm really sorry." But I wanted to say more than that. So I spent the morning stressing like mad about what to say and trying to get this right. And inadvertently, I got to about 10 to 12 and thought, shit, I've only got 10 minutes left of the morning. And Chris told me to ring him in the morning. So I rang him at 10 to 12. And I assumed that he would know exactly what I'd been doing, that I'd been sat there for 6 hours since 4:30 in the morning trying to work out what the hell to say to him. Of course, he didn't think that. He thought that I'd had a skinful the night before, been sick over him and been sleeping the hangover off until 10 to 12 in the morning. So I compounded it even worse by not speaking to him until lunchtime. What he did was brilliant. He said, "Right, Baz, I want you to turn your laptop off, turn your work phone off. I can't see you until a week on Thursday." And he said, "I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to consider what you have done." And that, but I had to call him at 8:30 every morning and 5:30 every night to check in. And I made that call. He answered it. He said, "Fine, thank you. I'll speak to you at 5:30 or I'll speak to you tomorrow." That was it. And in those 10 days, I thought, crikey, I have completely cocked this up. I thought, I'm waiting 10 days to get the sack.
Mm.
And I met him at the Bay Horse in Greenhammerton, one of our pubs. He sat down and he said, "What do you got to say to me?" And I said, "I'm really sorry. It's never, ever happened before. It will never, ever happen again." And I said, "But look, to save you the embarrassment, I've got my mobile phone and I've got my laptop because I suspect I know where this is going." And he said, "Was it a one-off? Had you ever done it before?" And I said, "Chris, I've never, ever done it before. And rest assured, from wherever I go from here, I will never, ever do it again." And he said, "Right, because you've been honest and open and accepted the error of your ways," he said, "I'm going to give you another chance." And he said, "I'm resetting your probationary period to this point." He said, "We're forgetting the good stuff, but we're also forgetting the bad stuff that you've done in the 4 weeks to this point." And he said, "We'll sit here again in 3 months' time and determine whether your probation is approved or not." And I remember driving home and thinking, and I'd done this before, but it crystallized, telling the truth, whilst often challenging and difficult, if you trust the truth, it is always the right thing to do.
100%.
And ever since that point, 2 lessons: I've never done anything other than trust the truth in both conversations with people that work with me and with the people that I work for. The second thing is I've never, ever, ever had a drink after 9 p.m. on a work do ever. I've never, ever, ever had more. I've never, ever been up beyond about 10:30, and I've never, ever put myself in that situation again. Chris was brilliant. He never, ever referenced it again. I have often referenced it to him. I still see him now, and we'll talk about it. But he's never, ever referenced it. And what he did was to give me the opportunity at Greene King, where I was for 5 years, to really grow into a regional manager who I think was fairly effective. And of course, they allowed me to go through the ALMR Ops Manager Awards process, which, as I said before, was the real unlocking key. But if it hadn't have been for Chris and the confidence and the trust and the belief that I was able to instill in Chris, and that Chris therefore then instilled in me, it would never have happened. And given the fact that I was sick over him 4 weeks into it, it probably shouldn't have happened.
Well, there is that. But the kudos to Chris for sure in this story, because we've all made errors. I mean, there's obviously a spectrum of error, right? In terms of that probably sits somewhere at the top end. But nevertheless, it didn't. You found yourself in a situation that was just one of those things that happens, especially when you're a bit younger, that sort of thing. You're just enjoying the fruits of life, and the line gets passed, and then decision making just goes out the window, right? We've all done that. I say I've definitely done that in the past. But so you make an error like that, a pretty big one, and Chris could just say, right, that's it, game over. Thanks very much. Wish you luck in the next thing. We won't put that on your reference type thing. But then equally, everybody kind of does deserve a chance to rectify a mistake, right? That's the other point, is that Chris could have quite easily just said go, but equally there may be a super talent hidden within this person, and this person needs an opportunity to demonstrate that, one, they can take the lessons that life throws at them and deal with that in the right way and move forward in the right way, or two, I just cast them aside and they don't learn anything from it, other than the really harder, a harder lesson perhaps is that here I am out of a job, and now you've probably got all this other stuff going on in your mind. Oh my God, am I losing control of myself? All of that. So Chris is a hero for
100%.
For sure.
He allowed me to, and this is an extreme example, obviously, but he showed me that it's absolutely okay to fall, and to fall safely. And what Chris did in that scenario was to allow me to fall and caught me. But there were loads of other instances where I'd gone from an environment in which you couldn't make a mistake, and that paralysis of fear, actually, the paralysis that was applied towards the end of my Enterprise Inns time forced me into making many more mistakes, where the scenario that Chris created, where it was okay to make a mistake and learn from it, actually produced a flourish, really, because then I had the confidence and the courage to start to try and make decisions. And of course, I still made a lot of mistakes, but Chris exemplified when he had to allow me to fall, and to fall safely, or allow me to fall and sometimes catch me. And it was great. And listen, Chris is not a soft leader in any sort of way, but he's a really supportive, yet challenging, yet driven leader, that through the safety that he provides, he allowed people to blossom and to develop. And listen, Chris touched the lives of lots and lots and lots of people. Many of my mates who I have shared a career with, and they will all speak equally highly of Chris. And it's that leadership piece. It's allowing you to freedom within a framework and giving you the space. I talked earlier about trusting the empowerment of accountability and responsibility, giving you the space to be able to do what you think is right. He had a great phrase. He said, "It's your business and your decision until it impacts my business when it then becomes my decision. And he said, but your challenge, Baz, is to make sure that none of your decisions ever impact negatively my business, where I then have to jump in and
Yeah.
make a decision. And I think that's brilliant. And that's what true leadership is. It's about empowering people around you. It's about making sure the people that you've got with you understand their importance in their team and how the component part you're playing in their team, and then adding value, having an impact, and being proud around all of the interactions that you have with people. Those three non-negotiable principles for me as a leader are mine, but they've been forged out of the experiences that I've worked through, and Chris and my previous boss at different levels of that played into that, I think.
Yeah. And also, I think I'm sure that he must have seen the remorse within you in that time around that, that you're probably embarrassed, right, as to something like that has happened. And as long as he can see that as well, there's he's then got the opportunity for you to repay the faith that he's put in, and you clearly went on to do that.
Yeah, I think owning, and that, another lesson out of that is that owning what you have done, not shying away from it, not trying to spin it, not trying to position it differently, owning what you have done. I mean, that was the monumental cock up, and mistake, but owning it was the right thing to do, learning from it and trying to move on from it. Again, you can apply that to anything and everything that you do. And it's about taking the great things from people, making sure you don't replicate the poor things from people. It's about taking the great things from experience and repeating them, and taking the less great things and making sure that you don't repeat it. And owning, honesty, two pretty key ingredients, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. Right, we absolutely, time is ticking. But
Yes,
we absolutely need to chat about two things for sure: the ALMR. Nearly said that wrong. And your role now as the chair of the North Star Competitive Career Accelerator. Get that out. Yeah, just rolls off the tongue. So talk to me about the I can't say it. The ALMR, because you've kind of reignited that.
Yeah, so the ALMR was the Opposite World process that I went through in 2013 was, without a shadow of a doubt, and I think all of us have these moments in our careers where almost at a crossroads or a sliding door moment where something occurs and you think that is the pinpoint that I would prick to say that's where I improved, or that's where I had the step change. I was an area manager that had a career as a lessee and a tenant, but I still had that underpinning voice of doom, that imposter syndrome that said you're a glass collector that got lucky and one day you're going to get caught out. One day you are going to be found out that you shouldn't be doing anything like this. You shouldn't be in front of tenants or lessees, advising them, supporting them, helping them drive their business because you're a glass collector who got lucky. I went on the course that Chris had put me on, and I went on there with the expectation that I would be, because I suffered from imposter syndrome for lots of reasons, that I would be the weakest link on that course and I wouldn't be able to compete. And I went into that course, did the entry paper, went to the masterclass, which was a 3-day event, off-site, locked into a hotel for 3 days. And within about half an hour, I thought, actually, these people speak the same language that I do. They talk in the same way that I do. They have the same nervousness and the same foibles, the same worries that I do. And there was an alumni of people, a community of people that had the same challenges, the same opportunities, and the same thought processes. And I went through this course, the masterclass course, which the element of the competition was competitive, but the masterclass wasn't. And my confidence grew and my belief in myself, although I didn't realize, grew exponentially as well. I went through the course, went to the fight, had a day in trade with a guy called Des O'Flanagan, which was brilliant. Took him to the warts and all pubs that I had, because I had no expectation of winning this thing. I thought, I'm just going to show him what I do. I was running 90 pubs at that time as part of the disposal region for Green King. So I was taking him to the proper bottom end of our estate. I was stretching to keep going. God knows what he thought. Anyway, did it and went through that program and got to the end of the program, had no expectation that I was going to win it. But I got to the end of that program, stood on the stage and thought, actually, I am okay here. Some of the things that I used to hang back in meetings, not answer questions. And in my head, I would think, I would say this, and then somebody else would say it, but not quite as articulately as in my head I was saying it. And that person would get the kudos. And I used to sit there and think, why the hell didn't you say that, Bats? You should have done that. You knew that. And I didn't do it. This course allowed me to do that. It also opened me up to a great group of people that I'm still in contact with now and have lots of banter with now. So the LMR Ops Award unlocked in me a confidence and a belief and gave me the opportunity to be able to say, actually, I can do this. And through some quirk, I won it. And that opened up opportunities in the immediate aftermath. Lots of people came forward to me and said, we want you to come and work for us. We want you to come and work for us. And I realized then all they were wanting to do was to take the title, to say, we've got the Ops Manager of the Year working for us. He's moved from Green King to wherever. And I didn't do it. I resisted it. And I was allowed to put into practice lots of the elements that I'd taken from the masterclass around leadership, around coaching, around developing people. And for that 2-year period of time, I was able to, after the award, I was able to put into practice some of those learnings. And then I joined Parkdean Resorts, same hospitality leisure sector, but a different industry within that sector. And I never looked back. And the ALMR Ops Award was the key point in my career where I realized that actually hospitality is a huge opportunity. There's some fantastic areas you can go into work to. And I might be in an area, in a stream in which I can swim in quite confidently. And that's why now, 10 years or 13 years later, since I won the award, that Nick Bish, who was LMR CEO, the driver behind the awards, contacted me about 18 months ago and said, I'm really keen to try and bring this back. I'd done some work with Nick's company in Parkdean as a trainer. And he had said, I'm really keen to try and bring the awards back. What do you want to do? You think there's some merit in it? And I look at that regional ops management role. These people are running £4-5 million EBITDA regions, big turnovers. They're a confidant, they're a coach, they're a counsellor, they're an accountant, they're an architect, they're a recruiter, they're a buyer, they're a menu builder, they're a support. They're also the first person that the tenant or the lessee or the licensed house manager gets angry with. They're leading and driving businesses, often influencing people, because certainly in leases and tenancies, you can't tell them what to do, you have to influence them. But they're also, I think, unseen, undervalued, and in many instances, underappreciated. And what I hope we do with the North Star Competitive Career Accelerator is provide a platform upon which that spotlight is shone on that really important group of people that are often unseen or undervalued, because the role that an ops manager has, a regional manager, business development manager, call it what you want, has on an individual's business, be it managed houses, leased or tenancies, whatever, is huge. And hopefully will provide a platform for exposure, for experience, for community, and will award and anoint and acknowledge the huge breadth of talent in our industry as well coming out of it. And that's what we want to do by bringing back what was the ALMR Award and will now going forward be known as the North Star Competitive Career Accelerator.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, but do you know what? What I love about that one is a reignition of something so positive is always, that's right up my alley. 100% behind that. But also what it's done for you in terms of notwithstanding, to have something on your CV that says, look, I got this thing, that's great. But actually what it did for you internally within yourself to kind of give yourself the confidence that, actually I belong at this table, 100% belong at this table, is somebody else is going to get the benefit of that going through this process as well. In fact, you don't even have to win in order to get the benefit of it.
Yeah, and that's an absolute key point for that. That is really important. I think we'll end up, we're about to open applicants. We'll end up with 20 finalists. All of those 20 finalists are immediate winners, because it's not about being crowned at the end. That's part of it, but it's not the main piece. the main piece is that it is that opportunity to develop. You come out of the masterclass with an accredited coaching certificate in coaching supplied by Dulcie Swanston and
Ah,
100 Bricks. So
legend.
she is an absolute legend, and that course will be brilliant. So you'll come out of that with an accreditation that you didn't have before. But one thing that's really important here is I've always thought this recognition is powerful and it's important to an extent, but development is crucial and essential in an individual. And that's why this is a competitive career accelerator. It's looking at taking the 20 best people in our industry and accelerating their careers through exposure to each other, through shared learning, through the coming out of the course with the certificate, but also opening up those opportunities to accelerate yourself, whether you are the notional winner or not. The fact that in 3 or 4 years' time, we'll have 3 or 4 iterations of this and a community of 100 people being the best operators in our sector and in our industry is crucially important. And it celebrates that. It celebrates that element as well. So winning is a byproduct of this, but the development, both as an individual, but also then as companies, because your talent is getting better, is far and away the most important outcome of what we hope to achieve with the accelerator.
Yeah, and celebrating good people. I mean, you actually wrote this in your notes that the one thing that I think hospitality could do with more of right now is a bit of a focus on celebratory stuff rather than just all the, the press is horrific. Like it's just don't even open it anymore because you just know what it's going to be, right? But actually, it doesn't stop the fact that there's still a massive amount of really wonderful things happening. They just need better coverage. Need to start a hospitality positive media company somehow. If anybody
Yeah.
wants to financially back that, just give me a shout. But also, I think sometimes as well with that, you've spoken about imposter syndrome. I think this is probably a byproduct of this industry, maybe more than others, because I think that people who really get into hospitality and really engage with it are usually, not always, but usually quite humble people, not egotistical, very empathic towards others before self, and all of these things that are wonderful traits to have in hospitality, but can be quite diminishing as well for self. And so actually sometimes if enough people tell you that you're shit hot at what you do, maybe you start believing it as well. And that's maybe, maybe that's part of the reason why that award played such a massive role in you kind of, I don't know, just puffing out the chest a little bit more and accepting that, actually I have the skill and mental fortitude to absolutely have my seat at this table.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I still have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I still spend a lot of time thinking, Baz, you should be collecting glasses. And one day I'll go back to doing that very, very happily. But I think what I've also realised is that probably an awful lot, if not all, of the people that we meet on a daily basis, in whatever interaction we have with them, whatever experience we generate with them, they all have imposter syndrome to a greater or larger extent, and they're all thinking the same. I think we're all thinking. Dulcie shared with me a picture a while ago, actually, in one of her books, about an imposter syndrome person that's looking through their glasses and thinking that everybody is looking at them, thinking, "What on earth are they doing?" But of course, the reflection on their lens of the other person looking at them is that person thinking, "That person's looking at me and thinking, what on earth should I be doing there?" And I think we're all doing that. And I think if you can find an environment, a career, a sector, a program that helps you build your confidence, stretches your trust in yourself and your belief in your own ability, then that helps dial down the imposter syndrome and dials up your ability to find that authentic voice that allows you then to perform with integrity. And this industry, in whatever role you are in, it's not about hierarchy, it's not about job title, it's not about earnings, it's not about whatever of that, because we're building, wherever we are in hospitality, we're building, generating, and creating experience. And having the confidence to create an experience is brilliant. And I think this is in a scenario in an industry where you can do that far more easily and far more accessibly than in lots of other areas.
100%. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think I really enjoyed our conversation to this point. So no pressure on the last few minutes. And but actually, there's so much gold in here. It's fantastic. We've kind of spoken about the past. We've kind of spoken about the now, but I also would like to speak about the future in terms of your role specifically at Parkdean. What's the future looking like for the organisation and yourself within that?
Oh, the future's fun. The future's really positive, and I think what's happened is because of some of the scenarios that we've experienced, the COVID impact where we were forced to stay at home, we thought we would never go abroad again, we'd never be able to travel again. That forced people to holiday, what would that be, 2021, 22 in the UK. I think some of the cost pressures that we're facing now, 4 or 5 years later, are probably forcing people to stay and holiday in the UK again. And I think from my perspective, what's brilliant is it's reinforcing how amazing the UK is. And I think we talked a little bit before about some of the media pressures. Unfortunately, we work and live in a society where the media wants to downplay absolutely everything. One of the benefits, or one of the silver lining, I guess, of the COVID cloud or of a recession cloud, is that it opens us up to realizing how fantastic and how amazing the UK is. And I think if you look, whether you're a holiday maker who comes on holiday with us for a weekend or for 7 nights or for 5 nights, or you're a holiday homeowner who's decided to buy a holiday home, caravan, lodge, or whatever, it shows you what we've got in this country, which we should never take for granted. We've got broadly fantastic scenery. And wherever we live in the UK, I live in the North York Moors, so fantastic scenery.
Nice.
Wherever you live, I think you're pretty close, maybe an hour and a half's drive to either fantastic rural scenery, mountains, etc., hills. You might be close to the coast. So yes, the weather isn't always brilliant, but the opportunity and the experience you can create and explore is great. And then when you extrapolate that and lay on top of that our fantastic hospitality industry that we've got, pubs, bars, restaurants, whatever, holiday parks offer the same thing. That package is really, really, really important. And I think it's a challenge for you to be able to find all of those things that you can find in the UK and experience in the UK on holiday or short break in lots of other cultures in the world, to get all of that enriched opportunity together. So I think from Parkdean Resorts perspective, we're in a great place. It's a fantastic business to work for. It's a great part of our hospitality sector that I had never ever realized existed. There's lots of transferable skills that you can deploy in running a holiday park that are symbiotic or associated with running a pub, a bar, a restaurant. And it's diverse, it's challenging, it's exciting. No 2 days are the same. And there's a great opportunity in that, in our business and in that sector. And I reckon you could take what I've said there and apply that to any role in hospitality, because that's the beauty of hospitality. And that's why we love it. Or certainly I love it, you love it, your listeners love it as much as we do, because hospitality is, without a shadow of a doubt, I believe, the best sector to work in the UK.
I mean, I didn't brief you on saying such things, but that is basically why this podcast exists, is for that. I fundamentally believe it's the greatest industry on earth for so many reasons that I've discussed on this show, for so many. And you've just summarised many of them
It's good that we're aligned.
beautifully. Yeah, but you won't find an industry that is more full of energy than this industry. I think, generally speaking. And actually, the industry touches so many other industries as well. I've spoken to people who, in legal firms, as an example, take what feels like a really dry place, but there's also a lot of legal firms who take hospitality very seriously, because they're inviting potential clients into their space in order to win their business, and they lay on wonderful hospitality to make that happen. So, this is an industry that really just kind of stretches far, far further than I think a lot of people give it credit for, and touches everybody's life, whether you're in it or whether you've been served by it. It's therefore, for me, makes it the most important industry under the sun.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that. And I keep coming back to that. We are, whatever role you have in hospitality, we are experience generators because we work in hospitality. And I think I'll never ever work in, I think we said right at the very beginning, my daughter has just started now in our local pub, and I can see her blossoming into a beautiful, very engaging, very polite, very warm young lady. And hospitality is doing that. Leanne and I, as the parents, have probably, hopefully, given her a great platform in order to be able to grow. But hospitality is refining and sharpening my daughter's presence that she will take forward into whatever she chooses to do. And I hope that it's got an element of hospitality in it, because why would you not want to work in hospitality? I don't understand the answer if the answer is you don't.
I know. But you're on the wrong show if you're trying to create an argument there.
We're talking about politics, get into politics or
No,
something
we
like that.
definitely do not need to do that either.
Thankfully, you and I are not doing that.
No, absolutely. But no, look, it's been a total pleasure to have you on the show. I wish you all the very best with the reignition of the North Star Competitive Career Accelerator in its new form, and we'll be watching from afar as to how that goes in this. Is this kind of like the inaugural year?
Yeah, this is the first year back. We've just got a couple of. We're just going through the final iterations and the final touch points of our structure and our planning. So we're very, very hopeful, with great association support from the BII, which is key. Big Six pub operators, Green King, Stonegate, Punch, M&B, etc., right behind us as well. So very, very soon we will be up and running. The timing of when we run the course is quite important, obviously. Big World Cup year, so pubs, bars, restaurants hopefully going to be greatly benefiting from that. So our timing is key. We're just working the nuances out that, so to make sure we launch with the greatest opportunity to afford everybody that works in our industry the space to apply. So watch this space. It will be developing from here, and it's Phil, it's been a great pleasure of mine to appear on your podcast, and I hope your huge broad range of listeners find something to take away from this.
I'm sure they
if
will.
not only to laugh at the fact that I told my boss to fuck off and then was sick on the new one within the space of 6 weeks.
You've just written my show notes for me, so no, that's wicked. Thank you so much, Barry. Wish you and Parkdean and everything you've got your head in all the greatest success in the world, and hopefully, with everything that's going on in the world, the staycation market this year can be one of the shining positive lights of the doom and gloom that exists. And yeah, wish you all the very best.
Phil, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Cheers. And there we have it. From glass collector to industry leader, with plenty of laughs, lessons and leadership wisdom in between. A massive thanks to Barry for coming on the show and sharing so wonderfully. We will of course be back next Wednesday with another amazing story from hospitality, so until then, have an awesome week, and I'll see you then.